Hello viewers, I'm Pooja Bothra, Senior Content Lead, ETHR World, and I'm here with two titans from the industry to share insights on skilling at scale, enabling workforce transformation for the new normal. We frequently do these fireside chats in partnership with Coursera to keep you viewers informed about the latest trends in enterprise learning that can boost your organizational skilling at scale. If things were back to normal, we would have met on a coffee table, but we have to learn to replicate real life experiences virtually. Coursera has been so thoughtful, generous, and helpful in this regard. They have sent us coffee hampers and a beautiful mug to make that coffee so special. I'd like to thank Coursera for that. Now I'd like to introduce the two speakers on this table. We have with us Dr. Vishwanath Joshi, CPO, Hexaware Technologies. At Hexaware, Vishwanath provides a strategic direction to all people, processes, and programs and align them to a high-growth business environment, entailing programs to build a great employee experience and create a high engagement, high performance culture globally. Welcome, Dr. Vishwanath. We look forward to deep diving into skilling at scale agenda at Hexaware.
Thank you. Happy to be invited.
We also have Dallas Krishnan, MD for Coursera Enterprise, India, Australia, New Zealand. Dallas believes in enabling enterprises and universities to learn without limits through the Coursera platform. In his view, the power of lifelong learning and upskilling is critical to the digital transformation of companies. Welcome, Dallas. Your insights on industry-wide learning are our weekly dose of staying up to date.
Thank you. Thank you, Pooja, and always wonderful to be here. And I'm looking forward to our conversation with Vijay.
So, Dr. Vishwanath, my first question to you is, what are some of the major skill requirements you see today, and how do you keep up with the pace of change of technology and the shelf life of talent being so short?
All right, yeah, that's a wonderful question to start with, Pooja. And I'll try and respond based on some experience that I have with my current role and organization, as well as what I see happening outside in various industries. Of course, I represent the IT services organization, so let me begin there. There are 3 or 4 skill requirements today that we are noticing. And when I say today, I'm really going back a little before the pre-pandemic to through this age, and of course, what we see coming up. First is, with all the changes that are happening in ways of working, we are experiencing, and this might sound a little philosophical, but it is as true, that the first learning need is learning how to learn. Remember, when we were all together in office, working with each other, so much of learning used to happen through the process of socializing. And while, of course, all of us in the companies are trying to see how we can get that back, even though, on a virtual platform, continue the socializing, that socializing that we were experiencing earlier is not happening now, which means that all that learning that I used to gather, like you rightly said a while back, through our coffee table conversations, chats in the cafeteria, so much of coaching, mentoring, learning, exchange of information used to happen there. But that is not anymore relevant. Yeah, of course, we're all hoping that things will get back to normal, but we all know this, right? And it's not going to be normal in that sense. So learning how to learn, I think that's fundamental starting point in my view. Second is on some specific, let me first begin with technical skills. No longer is the need to learn in a IT company, let's say, no longer is the need to learn how to code or how to test or how to project manage. The technical learning now is in terms of continuously understanding how and where do different technologies fit into the business domain. In my interaction with employees, I realized that while one part of the learning has very naturally happened, which is technology learning, How do you now fit that technology into evolving needs of the world is something that is not limited to now only a business head or a delivery head. I realize that this will have to go down, and which it is going down to even the developer, the tester, the operational staff. Because when they sit in code, having that picture in mind is absolutely critical. Because again, remember, the opportunities to keep traveling to the customer and looking at things in action are no longer there. So, so understanding that big picture right at your desk is an important learning need. The third aspect, and which normally we call soft skills, have become absolutely critical because earlier the soft skills also assumed personal interaction. Okay? And today it's not so much personal but virtual interaction. Therefore, I can already see that a whole host of courses coming in on remote working methods. Okay? But I'm reserving that for the last point. So the third point that I want to talk about is especially learning what I like to believe is get along ability to work with people who are not with you in your office, who are spread across the globe. Again, let's all remind ourselves today I could have team members from anywhere in the globe, and that is perfectly all right, very convenient to do for companies. So we could actually be expecting teams of people who have never met, who have never seen each other, who probably don't know about each other, but yet have to work together to produce fascinating results. So get along ability, I believe, is going to be a very, very important skill. It's already becoming important. I mean, I can see that in my own limited space at Hexaware, uh, and that is foundational to great teamwork in the coming days. And fourth, like I mentioned a while back, there are a host of working remotely as skills. For example, how do I manage my task? I don't really have any more my supervisor looking over my shoulder. All said and done, it does happen in companies, but now I have to be self-driven to be able to organize myself, build my task list, be disciplined about it. And that's not so much only about personality or attitude, but it's also a real skill that people need to learn. So this is really where I can begin my thoughts. These are four areas in which I believe skilling, upskilling, reskilling will become absolutely critical.
Yes, and you've really, set the right tone for this conversation to move forward. And, I totally agree that certain things about employee expectations, every employer must pay attention to is that you can work from anywhere. And outcome is more important than output. So, Dallas, I'd like to ask you, what are some of the trends you have observed about the in-demand skills and how will they transform in future?
All right. Thank you, Pooja. And let me, just Vijay, of the things that you said, I just wanted to comment on a couple of them before I get into answering your part, Pooja. And this is again, there's a small anecdotal story. The first point that you mentioned, learning how to learn. And on the Coursera platform, one of the most popular courses is actually a course called Learning How to Learn by a professor from University of Oakland called Barbara Oakley. Right? I think close to about 6 million people have taken that course out of the 92 million learners that are there on the Coursera platform. So that's one of the most popular courses. And the last thing that you mentioned, which is working remotely, and the remote working was the top trending course in the year 2020 when people pivoted and they had to relearn how to work in a remote environment. So remote working, there was a course, I can't remember from which university now, but there was a very popular course that was one of the top 10 courses in 2020. Right? It's, of course, now people are more adapted to it. So it's not in the 10 list, but it's still one of the important ones a lot of people take. I'll come to your question, Pooja, and what are we seeing, right? I think let me contextualize with the first thing. We talk about this great resignation, close to 4.5 million workers in the US left jobs just in November alone. I think the overall number from April I heard was something like 20 odd million. There's a wave of stuff that's going around, right? At the same time, I remember reading an article. This was, I think, actually it was not an article, it was a quote by Bharat Ramamurthy, who's actually the Deputy Director of White House National Economic Council. He actually referred it to as the great upgrade. He said it's not, I'm not going to call it as a great resignation. It's also the great upgrade. Now, that is linked to, one of the core trends that they observed was a lot of the changes or the people where they're leaving were actually the entry-level jobs, right? So people who are doing jobs like cashiers, retail, on the retail POS store. So there is a huge aspirational change that has come in those people, and they're wanting to do something different. And of course, they don't want to go through the hard course of doing those jobs. They want to be more balanced in their lifestyle and many other social reasons that is bringing that change. But one of the things that we observed as we saw on our platform, I was going to correlate the two. In the last 2 years, in our consumer platform, one of the most popular courses were what we call gateway courses or gateway certificates. Now, these are typically courses for people who are wanting to switch jobs or upgrade their careers so that their pay can go up or the lifestyle can change accordingly and so on and so forth. And these courses typically don't require any form of skill that you may require, right? For example, one of the most popular gateway courses is something around in technology side is the Google IT support course. Now, it's an entry-level course that has no prerequisites. You don't have to be an engineer. You go through that courses. I think it's about 20 hours of learning or something, which plus hands-on and then a practice lab, which is what the Coursera platform allows them to do. Do the coursework, get assessed, do some hands-on, become trained, sandboxes to practice. That leads to a certificate that says that you're ready for a support job on the cloud side. And of course, this is an in-demand skill. So we're seeing a trend of those courses being picked up really well, both on the university campus sides of students, people are coming out and wanting to look for new jobs, as well as this career switchers, as we are saying, right? In that sense, I'll go back to that comment by Bharat Ramamurthy that it's truly is a great upgrade where people are looking at newer ways of skilling themselves. There is an opportunity to skill themselves and make those shifts around it. The second part around is the fact, which is a technology dimension, which is, and especially Vijay will accrue to this, the entry-level jobs in all sectors are getting what I use this word called algorithm, right? In the sense, if there is an ability to put a computer algorithm to make that job work, it will do that, right? Think of something as simple as in the olden days, sifting through a resume was a manual process. It no longer is, right? So today you have tools and keywords and the wonderful AI engines, which actually can go through millions of resumes and then come out with the most right fit for you, right? So in some sense, what would have been a manual job at the entry level in an HR function is now algorithmed and is being handled by technology. But as a result, what is happening is that entry-level jobs itself are changing. It's not that the entry-level jobs are vanishing. It's just the nature of those jobs are changing. And you're demanding higher level of skills from in terms of what they're doing. Right? On the technology side, today we talk a lot more about not just a core Java developer, we talk a lot more about full stack developer, right? In the sense that because that function which was done by earlier, probably 6 different teams can today, by virtue of the fact that how platforms have evolved using technology, can be done by a single individual. Right? So that's the second part, which is how technology is redefining jobs. And in that context, that will continue to change, right? And this technology will evolve. The currency of skill will probably become less and less. The slowest that technology is impacting our lifestyle is probably today, right? So in that context, lifelong learning is going to be a far more important criteria as the world moves forward. The third part is the ability to measure and where you stand, right? If the first two were true, then you also need to know where am I, right? If me as a learner, so people are actually now asking us, can you help us know where I stand? And it is actually truly multi-generation. It's not just entry level. Across job roles, across job levels, people need to know where they stand vis-a-vis what the in-demand skills are. And they need to reskill and upskill themselves. So there is a need for an ability to people to measure themselves, know where they want to go, how they can get there, and then also, in a sense, watch their skills change realistically, so that allows them to be more productive, right? So I think these are some of the few top things that I would like to present to you today.
Very interesting perspective, Dallas. And some of the thought leaders are predicting that some of the technologies that we're going to use in 2025 are not even present today. So I totally relate to what you said, and a great perspective on great resignation that you shared. Very, very interesting. Dr. Vishwanath, our viewers would also like to know, what are some of those best practices you've initiated for skilling and reskilling of your employees at Hexaware?
So, of course, at Hexaware, we started a series of new initiatives. And the reason I'm saying initiatives is because while the idea must have been existed for a long time, but how do you contextualize it and make it relevant to the organization? So we started a program called Jumpstart. Okay. Now, Jumpstart itself is a message to employees that while things are changing so fast, here is an opportunity for you to reskill, upskill, cross-skill. And we supported that program with a framework that Hexaware has, and we kind of rejigged that framework. It's called Evolve. Evolve is a framework. It's actually a very interesting framework with a combination of skill-based roles and a path that the framework defines for you to take. Now, the only difference, and I believe that's a big difference from a industry perspective, is to say we are going to eliminate any blockages to your movement from any part of the company to any other part of the company. There are only two conditions. One is you have to plan the transition, and second, you have to be prepared for the transition. And preparation is where we bought. Hexaware actually has a virtual university called Hexavarsity. And therefore, what we had to really do was to integrate Jumpstart, Hexavarsity, and the Evolve framework so that it becomes like a holistic approach to cross-skilling, reskilling, upskilling, which is also integrated with your career management. So this is really one of the first things that Hexaware did to be able to drive this message that, folks, let's wake up, because the changing times do demand new learning. So that's one aspect that we looked at. The second is, which again, I believe is a very, very significant culture. We said, how do we promote informal learning while we are not in the office, and it's going to be some time before we get back to the office environment, but we started various tech forums. Okay, the old term for this was communities of practice. We started communities of practice with some technical wizards leading this practice to get people together who are like-minded, who are looking for opportunities to learn in a semi-structured manner, and provide forums and provide that environment with some resource support so that they can come together to learn together. So while of course the rest of the things are happening as routine, but these are two important changes that Hexaware made. Again, I wouldn't claim that these are out of the world new practices, but from a Hexaware point of view, these have been some positive changes which are yielding results to us.
Very interesting, Dr. Vishwanath. Dallas, I'd like to ask you that, talent gap today is real. So what do you think organizations can do to bridge the gap between required skills and existing talent pool? Sure.
Pooja, I think a perfect example of what Vijay said vis-a-vis Hexaware's, the framework that he spoke about. And in the way we have seen, right, and we, of course, every organization is not as mature as Hexaware's, the framework. We actually obviously see three different patterns. The entry-level pattern is open learning, which is just put it out there and let people go and figure out what to learn. and then measure with some old traditional metrics around hours of learning and stuff like that, right? So the second one is typically the guided learning, where we, of course, direct people into doing certain things because that's business critical, or sometimes it's compliance related, but you want to force people to do a certain things. But so you measure certifications, completions, and stuff like that. But the one which we just spoke about is what we see is where a lot of companies are moving to, which is what we call a skills first learning, right? And this begins with companies mapping out their capability matrix, their, where their business is going, where their industry is going. You map out the journey of where you stand. There is a context of assessment and measurement, and then there is a context of path that you need to create, right? Now, this starts right at the organization level, where you need to know as a company, where do you stand? And then at the lowest level is as a learner, where I am a learner, both of us are doing, let's say, a full stack developer role. But Dallas's knowledge in, let's say, in software engineering is much poorer than Vijay's, right? But we are doing the same role. So we need to then curate the learning path for both of us uniquely, so that the impact of that learning is determined by the skills that we have. So this is one of the core areas that we are seeing. That's probably the biggest shift. And hence learning platforms are having to evolve in this, right? So there is the, as we just said, that there is a context of learning that you need to do in a, where talent mobility is a reality. People will always want to move to do new jobs, but it's no longer an expectation, that you would want to give it to them. You say that here is a path, here is what you need to do, here is how you get there. So that ownership, you need to shift there. But when you shift that ownership there, you need to tell him how, right? So that part is where I think the learning platforms have evolved. I know we have done significant amount of work in that in the last couple of years with concepts like skill sets and level sets, where we combine the course curation, the course content in the context of learner is n is equal to 1. It's not a cohort of 20 people, which can be, but the best is where we say n is equal to 1, where my learning journey feels mine, and I know how I'm doing well, and I know where I'm lagging behind. I am able to motivate myself when I see I'm making progress vis-a-vis what my goals are. So that, I think, is the framework that we are seeing is being adopted by more mature companies, and probably will become the more embedded institutional framework as we go forward.
And if I may just add to this, while all of us as students of learning and development have learned these frameworks, but what I have learned recently in my current role is this really requires a binding organizational philosophy around learning. As you rightly said, Dallas, just putting the content out there and telling people, hey, you have some 20,000 courses that you can choose from, has actually not helped. Maybe people go behind it like a frenzy initially. Freshers who have nothing else to do, they're not allocated to projects, kind of keep completing these courses. But I think there needs to be an organizational philosophy binding this, so people see what is the value. At Hexaware, we did that, not only in the context of learning, but we defined that organizational philosophy as own your game. Okay? We actually put this out as a cultural mantra to say that all of us at Hexaware, at whatever level you operate, whatever you do in this company, you own your part of the company. You own your part of your career, your performance, your learning, your communication. And I have seen that positioning works very well, because it's very easy for me to have a conversation with an employee to say, hey, tell me, how are you owning your learning? And the person connects saying that, hey, this is something that distinguishes the organization, Hexaware as an organization, than other companies. So you're right, just content is not really helping. That content tied to the value is really what is important to make it happen.
Very interesting, Dallas and Vishwanath. And I totally agree that, talent mobility today is very, very important, and it's an important policy in most organizations. In fact, retention hinges on that. And that will really, motivate learners to move left, right, center with their careers. With that, we come to an end of this session. Viewers, I hope you found this session very informative and insightful. We'll come again with another leader from the industry along with Dallas and keep you updated with learning trends. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pooja. Thank you, Pooja. And thank you, Vijay. It was absolutely wonderful to hear you speak today.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you so much. It was wonderful being on this forum.